Podcast, where we talk about rocks and anything rock related. I'm Courtney King with CNS Services, Cabs and Stones. Who's everybody else?
I'm me.
I'm me. That's Dave.
Goodness me.
We all know Dave.
We got Brad tonight,
We
guys.
got Brad tonight.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Brad.
Brad actually made it.
Guy.
Sorry, I really sorry I missed last week. I got tied up trying to get trusses set on Mom and Dad's house.
Oh man,
I had guys over here setting them, so we hurried and finished setting them. So it is what it is.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. Yeah, and that's not a project you can stop midway in very easily. You just got to finish it out.
Yep, 100%. So we've got the house dried in now. So now it's time to start knocking out the interior. So we're getting there.
You think you're going to have it done by Christmas for her?
I'm hoping so. It's going to be a push, but I'm going to try.
I've been there. I've been there and done that.
Yeah. What have you not done, John?
I don't know. I pretty much we kind of, because we grew up on a farm, we had
you did everything.
We just do everything, and so a vehicle breaks, you fix your vehicle. Oh, you got to put a new roof on the house. Well, you put a new roof on the house.
Right.
Well, we didn't come from a lot of money either. So like a lot of what we did, we had to fab it. So, getting into fabrication, which really, it's what we do now, really came out of the necessity that we didn't have the money to go buy ladder bars. When we were doing drag racing, we fabbed our own ladder bars.
Right.
We did all that kind of stuff. And that really...
Well, you know what we did? We walked into a store that was selling the ladder bars with a tape measure. Measure a couple of things. Okay. And I got a photographic kind of memory. So I'd be like, I got the measurements. We'd go home and I'd write it out on a piece of paper and then start fabricating stuff.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll tell you how poor we were, Sherman, when I was a teenager and we had that old Chevy. Buddy of mine, we would, because we couldn't afford what we wanted to jack it up, we would take a jack and we'd jack it up and we'd take 2x4s and stick up inside the springs, stand them up on end up there. So, you go down the road like this. Of course, the car rode this way all the time.
Oh my God.
It was real comfortable.
Right. But,
what we discovered? We discovered that if you took the springs out of a station wagon, you get a hell of a lift. You stick them on the back of a two-door.
Yeah,
there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever have the cars that you had to start with a screwdriver?
Many times.
Well, I had a 65 GTO, and back then the locks that they put for the starter switch, they were on the dash before. It was before column. They were on the dash, and those locks weren't very good. If you had a little tiny screwdriver, you could be like flip.
Yep. I used to drive a Nova, a 3-on-the-tree Nova that was a boyfriend of mine, and I don't know what he did to it, but we had to start it with a screwdriver. It was a thing.
Yeah.
So, what you did, you should have gotten rid of the boyfriend and just kept the Nova.
Yeah, right.
That's a dream car these days.
Now that's like a ragged out. That's a 20,000 plus if it's somewhere in the 70s.
Yes,
at least.
We went up to there's a auto car mall. Classic auto car mall, like 2 hours from us, and we go up there every now and again and just ogle all the old beauties. Yeah. They've got some gorgeous vehicles up there.
Hey, do we want to get into some questions here? Because I know, Dave, you had some questions on flat laps.
Yes.
Well, yeah, one of the things that we haven't really talked about here, and you can see this old, I don't know if you know what this is, Sherman. Can you guess what?
That's a Griffin.
That's an old Griffin. Actually, this is a part of a 10-in-1 station that they made. And so this one's about 40 years old that I use. Still runs like a top. I mean, that old equipment, you just can't hardly kill the stuff. But I look around now, and the only thing that I see out there is an inland or, some other piece of plastic, and there are only a couple of them. And so, I don't know what everybody else uses. That's the only thing I've seen. I refuse to buy one because they're plastic. And of course, this company that I've been dealing with, this Highland Park, they don't have one. So what does a person do these days?
I heard some rumor that guy's working on a design for one.
See? And honestly, I'd love to see this type of a design right here.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. What's great about this flat lap? It has this big lock nut on either side. And you pull those loose and you pull that up completely flat, or you can pull that down to a 90 degrees. Oh, they're just wonderful. Wherever it's comfortable for you, or if you need to change the angle of where you can see the stone, I like it. You can pull that down where you can look over the edge of the stone, or you can see where you're beveling on the back of it if you want to pull it up. And it is a direct drive motor, so that should really be something right up your alley as well. Because what you're doing with these tumblers.
Did they make that one? Was that variable speed or was that single speed? I can't remember.
It is a variable speed, and it'll run about, I believe it's 3,600 RPM.
Yeah, I think they did that with DC.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Sure.
What is the point of a flat lap?
Well, I would say there's really multiple points.
Okay.
So the first can be really because you want to grind something and make it flat. Because if you're on a cabbing machine, it's a radiused wheel, and if you're trying to get something flat, it's kind of
difficult.
Yeah. And that's the only experience that I have with anything flat is that little side flat piece on my cab machine. But other than that, like I don't.
So
why would you?
The other piece of a flat lap is orientation. So, if you put a flat disc on the side of a cabbing unit, it's running vertical. It changes how you can use that to some degree.
Yes.
But, like the Griffin unit that Dave is talking about, you can, and also like the slant, they call the slant, slant cabber. They're flat laps, but they're on an angle. To make them more accessible or easily worked on the surface, and those then you could actually cab on them as well as do flat work on them.
Right.
So
and I know a lot of people do still have some of the old slant cabbers, or I think High Tech now has one that they call a slant cabber.
Yeah.
But to me, I've seen people do pretty good on them. To me, you will never get the same quality out of a flat lap to do a domed cab as what you're going to get on a set of wheels.
Right.
And you're kind of limited because I'm obsessed with inward curves.
Yep.
On my concave curves on my cabs, I'd like to do bear claws and stuff like that.
Right.
Yep.
You can't do that on a flat lap.
Can't do that on a flat. Yeah.
That's right.
And that's why I use a 6-inch versus an 8-inch machine, because I like that nice curve that 6-inch wheel will give you.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could have a flat lap and put a little bar on it that goes over the center arbor and everything, and have a little Antarja machine, and it would be great.
Right.
So.
You can, except for there's one problem with that. Most flat laps are not built in a design where really, I mean, it would take something really this big ostensible type of a get up to try to get that around there, because the way most flat laps are built.
You could just do a half moon over plate, okay, like a hub that goes over top half of it, and then do a flat plate that goes over the center nut, and make sure that it all sits flush, and you could push that right down on there and have zero problems.
Or you could do like Michigan Bob does it, and you could just weld that plate right to your 8-inch lap.
Yeah, the challenge
whatever works.
If you're looking at doing Antarja work, and this is a lot of what we thought about when we were designing the Antarja machine. And do you guys know who Al Sassona is?
I do not.
Al Sassona was kind of one of the original designers of the Antarja machine that it gained some popularity, but
it failed overall.
I mean, the manufacturing, was really rudimentary. So it was like using a cake pan and some other kind of, and it was fine. Like they were well built, functional machines. But of course, we weren't gonna replicate the machine that way because it's not scalable. But what's different about that than converting a flat lap to try and do Antarja is that when you look at Antarja, you can start with the most simple kind of Antarja, which is like a square or a rectangle with a border or maybe like an inner border and an outer border. And all of those pieces are basically, you're looking at, you want them to be parallel, you want the ends to be square, you want that all the lines need to be 90 degrees. So when you fit them together, you're not getting gaps.
Right.
Now, that's not impossible to do with a flat like you're talking about. But the minute you start saying, I'd like to make a 6-sided box, and now you need angles, and you need repeatable angles. So each time you make one of those pie-shaped pieces, it's exactly the same. And then when you fit them all together, it all adds up to 360 degrees, and you're not looking at the points are together, but you got a gap out here in the outer edge. And to do that, you got to have some fixturing on the machine that allows you to nail that angle every single time. And so that's a lot of what we were thinking about, because, you know, if you're making really nice intarsia boxes, you can make some really good money on those if the quality's there. Because there's not a lot out there like that, and the stuff that's out there that's good is high money.
Yeah.
So we wanted to be able to give the users a tool that would allow them not just to make, you know, squares and or rectangles and get successful there, but to actually expand. Like, because when people get into intarsia, you see them like they amp up, they start doing more and more complex stuff. And they are able to sell those pieces for more if they're selling, or make more sophisticated, more satisfying pieces for themselves. Because their tools are not limiting them.
Well, we worked a lot with also, so Al Sassona was kind of the originator, and then there was one other guy that made a bigger machine, but Al was the one that really had the most commercial success. He's still alive. I think he's 96.
He was like in the 80s, wasn't he, when he did
he's
that?
Like, yeah, he's like 96 or 97.
Yeah.
He actually lived probably from where we're at in New England. He lived about 3 miles from here. He's in Florida now. I think he's 96 or 97 years old. Bill Boggs, who teaches intarsia at the William Holland School of Lapidary, was very involved in a lot of what we did, because again, he's a high-end intarsia guy. And so we learned a great deal from him and collaborating. And then, of course, John then brought in his expertise around fixturing, because when we're making machines, we create a lot of fixturing so that our manufacturing is very consistent. So when we're welding or anything, lots of jigs and fixtures. So we applied that same approach for then having a series of fixtures. So if you want to do different bevels or different angles, that you can consistently get that without having to completely reset up your machine. It's a pretty slick way that John had done it. And those machines are coming in December. Early December. I think the first batch of those we sold out in like one evening.
I saw them on there, and a few hours later they were gone.
Yeah.
Like that.
It's kind of great. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So
I've heard about Tim Reed as well. Yeah.
One thing I was looking at is you have a 6-inch and you have an 8-inch. And I'm thinking, okay, for somebody like me, the 8-inch makes sense, because when you have your plate on there that you're going to use, you're only going to use a certain portion of that disc. But when you're through with that, I can take that off and it'll go right over here on my 8-inch flat lap. So, you know, kind of a dual.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So your tooling standardized this way.
Right, exactly. So now, like Jaws Jr., I've been over to his place, and I know he has 2 of those plastic ones, those Ameritools sitting there, but they're 6-inch.
Yeah.
I believe, if I remember correctly, they were 6-inch. So for him, if he wanted an intarsia, it would make sense. I don't think for most people, the difference between a 6 and an 8-inch, the amount of work they can do, I don't think for the most people it's going to be a huge difference. Maybe for people who want to do some bigger stuff a little bit.
Right.
But, you know, so yeah, kind of makes sense. Now you can match it to the other equipment that you have, and I like that idea.
Well, we also have a customer over in the UK that is kind of the leading restorer of mosaics around the world. And he goes and he gets paid to redo these huge mosaics. These mosaics are certainly in cathedrals and things like that. Uses really all Highland Park stuff. In fact, didn't that stainless steel 24 just went to him, I think. because a lot of the certain materials he wants to cut in water. But he's an example where he wants to have a lot of those very precise angles in that. So I'll be for sure talking to him as soon as we have units available in 230 volts.
230.
Yeah, because in the UK.
Oh yeah, I forgot everything over there.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the things I was wondering on that with some of the work that you're doing with direct drive and the DC, why did you choose not to make that one a direct drive when the motor sits directly behind it?
Well, there's a couple reasons why. One, I designed it before we did the big innovation on the tumblers. So it's kind of funny. I built a bunch of tumblers, and they were around the shaded pole motor. And what happened is I looked at them, and I'm preparing them and all, and I freaking hated them.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to finish them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need a better solution, because everybody's done this stupid O-ring belt on tumblers for everybody,
right?
And everybody's still doing that, and it's dumb. And it's like, why are we still doing something dumb? And I was pissed at myself for doing something dumb. And then
and spent a lot of money on those motors.
I got I don't know how many motors sitting in there, and I don't care about them because I don't want to sell them. And so then I'm working with my general manager over there, and we need an innovation. And she found these guys.
We're talking about, Ed, we're talking about motors, and David asked a question about, direct drive and evolution of technology. We're just, as this kind of tied into conversation.
So I'll circle back. Thanks. I'll circle back to how it applies into the entire machines. But basically what happened is we experimented with all these different things. And then these guys that are doing, there's basically a technology called brushless DC. Now, if you own a DeWalt drill or a Milwaukee drill, almost all of that stuff is brushless DC. But in general, it's a different form factor than people are used to, because they're high speed. So if you want high torque, you gear them. So you gear them down, and if you've ever used one of those cordless drills and you put it on the low gear and you start doing something with it, it'll twist your arm off.
Yes.
A lot of torque.
Right.
And so we started looking at those, and all of a sudden it was like, holy smokes. We can put a little tiny controller, we can put the motor in, we can go direct drive, we can get rid of all the other crap, and it's high torque. And the biggest problem with the rotary tumblers is they got no balls. So you start them up and they sit there and doesn't run.
Put your hand on the drum.
Or you can stall it out. So anyway, we implemented that solution, and it was freaking great. Like, it is, without any doubt, the most incredible tumbler that has been built in a rotary tumbler. And I could actually really be happy with it.
They're variable speed too?
Yes.
Nice.
We'll shoot a video.
Speed, and what's great is there's a little trim pot on the side, so you can adjust the speed of your tumbler, which we're actually gonna bring that around and actually make. We're doing we're selling a lot of these right now, so we're doing another batch right now, which will be just like the first ones. But then the batch after this, I'm gonna put the control for the speed on the back.
There you go.
And I'm going to offer a very low cost tachometer, so you can actually put a piece of tape on your barrel and tack it and say, yeah, that's the speed that I'm going to use for this rock. And if you're doing a different rock and you need to run slower or a little, you can dial it in,
right?
And then get your, and part of what we'll do is, we got all these people that do tumbling, and they're all excited about having the ability to vary the speed of their tumblers, and they're going to start telling us, well, when I'm tumbling lapis, I tumble it at this speed, and then when I'm tumbling this, I can tumble it faster, and we'll start building a table out of what is the speed that you should do. So for then the beginners, they don't have to figure all that shit out themselves. They can sit there and go, here's the reference.
Yeah, we want to really ultimately come up with a recipe book, because you imagine, like, everybody loves rocks, and tumbling is the entry point into lapidary. And either people succeed and they pursue the path, or they fail and they go to something else. So our ideal vision is to give them an algorithm, if you will, like, this is the recipe, this is the speed, so they can do it. And like right now, like Dave, with your tumblers, like you can adjust those. And John, we'll shoot a video showing how to adjust the tumbler.
I'm shooting a bunch of videos.
I was getting ready to make a video this weekend to show how to adjust. I've got mine completely torn apart over here on the counter, so I can show people the different components of that.
Good.
You know, and honestly, guys, it is the easiest machine to take apart I've ever seen. I mean, you can reach down in there, you pop the roller up and pull it back and reach down a couple of screws. You've got the motor out, you've got the controller out. It was just phenomenal. So anybody can learn to do this. And one thing that I've seen, Roland, is what you just mentioned with these. People get frustrated and then they don't want to do it anymore. They quit.
That's right.
Yeah. I hated tumbling.
And, you know, like,
Couldn't
if you
stand it.
really want to get people engaged and have them have a great experience in lapidary, then you got to help them. You got to make products that make it easy for them, and you got to give them enough information and enough guidance, because, you know, if it's too hard, then it's no fun.
Yep.
Well, and here's another great thing about it. So the very first rock tumbler our charity ever gave away was to a young man in Montana, who we gave that rock tumbler to almost 5 years ago now. And his mother got a hold of me here about 6 months ago, and she said, it scared us. We thought we were going to lose our house. She said, we walked out there and the motor on that lower tone literally was smoking and was on the verge of catching on fire. Now, you know, I know that doesn't happen a lot, but one thing about the motor on this one, and I think I told somebody last time, I walk over there, the thing had run for 2 weeks and never been shut off. You walk over and the fan is blowing air out the side, and whatever the room temperature is, that's the temperature of that motor.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, there's two things. There's two things
important.
about that, Dave. Yeah. One, I did experiments on it. I ran it at first with no fan on it. And literally, it was fine. It was running fine, but I looked at it and I go, it's running just a little tiny bit warmer than I'd like. And I was thinking literally about, well, if somebody puts this in a room that's kind of hot, or they put it in their garage in Texas in the summer, I'm like, nah, that's just asking for trouble. I'm going to I got this little tiny fan that does a great job of pushing air into the unit. It's actually pushing air into the unit, which basically forces any warmth out. And now they're running dead cold, and it's like, it's perfect. And I can tell you this, if you look at all the other designs, it's not just lower tone, all the other designs that put a shaded pole motor in, they have a fan on the motor, and there's nothing pushing any air into the unit. It's just the fan is mixing the air
just
around.
Moving that air.
You got the circulation.
Some of it's going to get out, and those things run so bloody hot. I mean, like that. My biggest concern was, it's a product that is a stupid design that's a liability. As a company, it's a liability, because if it does catch on fire and burn somebody's house down, they're going to come back at me. So I didn't want to build the thing. After I did all that, I'm like, no, this thing sucks. I'm not going to do it.
Well, and that's my one concern with the tumblers. So this coming week, we'll have given away number 36 of these tumblers. And all of the kids we give them to have autism. And so there are different levels of intellectual ability, different ages. I don't want one of them to, you know, sometimes parents will take the top of that case off so it's sitting open so it can stay cool. Yeah. Those things are hot enough to burn you.
Yep.
And I don't want one of our kids to reach in there and get themselves burned. Yes, I know kids should know better, but kids are kids, especially if they have a cognitive disability.
Well, there's one other thing that was a concern that I brought up around the shaded pole, because I kept thinking about my kids when they were young. They had long hair.
Yes.
And if that tumbler you get your hair caught in there, it's just going to keep going, and it's just going to keep going. Your kid's getting his head pulled down there. You know, you got daughters.
That happened to me when I was a kid, not on a tumbler, but same thing in an air conditioning unit.
What John built into that thing is, and you do this with your tumbler, if you just grab the drum and you stall that motor, it's just going to shut off. It's not going to keep going. It's got a safety in there.
It senses the motor. It senses the motor revolution, and if the motor goes to a stop rotor condition, basically it's like, I don't know, 3 or 5 seconds. It times out and shuts off.
Oh, that's awesome.
It won't restart unless you unplug it and plug it back in.
There you go.
I like that.
There you go.
That's awesome.
It was like.
So J&V Rock County just said he has the body motor of a Lortone 33B that needs barrels for it.
We got lots of barrels.
I was going to say, your barrels are a standard size barrel, right? So your barrels and lids. And the nice thing is they have that really nice, pretty red lid on there.
Yeah. You like that?
I like that.
I love the seafoam green and red. I love it.
We're like, why wouldn't you anodize the lid? I mean, aluminum's kind of ugly, but if you can color it, then it looks cool. Well,
that looks awesome.
This is a muscle car. This is like us being in the muscle car thing. We're like, friggin' let's anodize it,
right?
You know,
that's great. 3 pounds.
So your barrels, John. So I had one person complain. He said the barrels don't seem to be as thick as what the Lortone are. But to me, it seems like that the material that these drums are made out of, number one, you want a little bit of flex. They will sit on the rollers better. You will get more of a continuous turn out of it.
Dimensionally, they're exactly the same.
Right, yeah. And the material to me seems like it's just as rugged as what the harder material Lortones are.
I think their rubber may be just a little bit harder durometer.
Right.
And you know, we'll see. Like I'm doing 6 pound and 12 pounds right now. And those need to be even harder durometer. And we got our first prototypes, and they're freaking great. So we'll see. Like certainly we're going to be paying attention to, you know, how does it look on the barrel life and the wear. I don't think we're going to see a big difference at all. But we're going to keep refining.
Yeah.
Well, I think also
what barrels would they need for that 33B?
33B is 2 to 3 pound barrels.
Right. 2 of the 3 pound. Okay.
Yeah.
Jeff Gilreath, you know, just to hit up John.
What's that now?
It's Jeff Gilreath.
Okay.
He knows you. He knows you guys. So.
Yeah.
Jaws says he'd love to be a beta tester for the 12 pounder. I'm anxious to see what your 12 pounder is going to be like. Of course, I have the Tumblers 12 pound, you know, with that octagonal barrel.
I'll tell you what I did is I took the existing Lortone design on that 12 pounder and I just replicated it. Like
why not? That's what everybody else uses.
I changed the bushing some because I didn't like the bushing configuration, and I'm changing the pulleys and belt mechanism. But when I started it, I bought like 500 motors, so I got tons of motors for those things. So again, I hadn't been doing the brushless DC yet. Now, if I hadn't bought all those motors, this would look like a different machine. So here's what's probably going to happen. I'm going to build these first units, probably 500 of them or whatever. We'll sell them really fast. I'll do some of the 6s, some of the 12s, and then I'm going to iterate.
Total revamp.
I'm going to iterate. I'll change the frame on it, and I'll go to a brushless DC, direct drive, eliminate the belt, eliminate the pulleys, and it will look different, and it will be better.
Yeah,
but I got like 500 motors, so I'm going to build it.
Well, and they're going to be good units with what we've got there, and
yeah, they're not a shaded pole motor. It's a fully wound motor. But when I think about the opportunity to have them be variable speed, yeah, I'm going to go there.
Try again.
Well, and that gets back to the Intarsia too. So when we did that, we weren't really dealing with a lot of variable speed. I think there'll be another version of that which will do variable speed.
Yeah, the
cost will be higher.
The challenge on a machine like the Intarsia machine is right now what we did is we put a stainless steel hub on the shaft of a 1/2 horsepower motor, and then that motor's really, it's rigid, it's heavy duty, so you can just mount the disc right on that, and you're running on the motor shaft. Now, if I go brushless DC, the interesting thing is the motor is a lot smaller,
right?
Because the torque and the gearing, and so then it becomes a little bit more of a challenge to how you're going to support it. Do I need to make another set of bearings and a housing to hold an arbor, and then I'm going to put that motor and couple it to that arbor, and what's that going to do to the cost? So it may not be actually an ideal machine to do that with, particularly since it's such a new concept. We're going to see how people respond.
Right.
If I'm selling 1 unit a month or 2 units a month versus 30 units a month, then that will affect what I'm going to look at and go, I'm going to apply the technology here. So the popularity of it, and I think, I see a lot of conversations about Intarsia since we started talking about Intarsia machines. So, hopefully what we'll do is we'll make Intarsia grow, and then I can justify iterating that design to even something more cool. It's very cool as it is.
It's a beautiful machine.
Really cool.
I've seen the pictures of it. Yes.
Are you going to keep it rotary or vibratory? Jeff wants to know.
He was talking about
he's talking about the 6 and 12.
Yeah.
The 6 and the 12 are going to stay rotary.
Okay.
But having said that, we are working on a little vibratory style tumbler.
UV18 style?
Yeah, it's like our VT24, and basically, so we're going to do that. I got the design for all the old Vikings. All that design is done. It's been done. Like, I'm a design machine, so all of those Viking tumblers, I did the design.
Probably 3 years ago, right?
It was more
maybe 5 years ago.
I've had it for a long time. The problem has been on that motor. Now I've got brushless DC, and I can come back and I can take brushless DC and apply it to that, and then have a variable speed Viking, which is freaking awesome, because the original Vikings were just a 1725, or actually it might have been a 3450 motor inside that's spinning a couple of counterweights.
Right.
So that's more of how I'm looking at that now. So I like the intentionality around the tumbling. We're going to build out a range of rotaries because a lot of people like the rotaries and they're very popular. And have you seen our new tumble rougher?
I have. I don't. I know. I gave pictures of it out, but I don't know who all has seen it.
Well, basically, the idea behind that is that everybody has the same problem. You start off with these jagged, funky shaped rocks that they got to tumble a long time to get nice and rounded to look like really great tumblestones.
Right.
And it takes a long time to do that. So I created this machine that has this big diamond plate in the bottom. And it's a chamber that's, I don't know, about 14 or maybe 14 inches.
Yeah.
And you dump your rock in there, 15, 20 pounds or so. And you close the lid, and it has a water drip on the top, and you turn it on, and it sounds like holy hell as it's grinding the heck out of you.
I love it.
3 minutes later, your rocks are like really round. Like it's crazy fast. And the idea behind that is like if you're tumbling, you're spending days to get to that state. And now I can help you get there in minutes.
Yeah. So
now, let me tell you what that's like in terms that guys like me understand. This is like putting a Peterbilt up against one of the old Ford 9000 road commodes. I mean, it's I loved what I saw. I'm really excited about it. I've told my wife what I want for Christmas.
Yeah.
She gave me that look.
We have more coming in on the next container. I just saw them in there, John.
Nice.
More. Yeah. So if you want one, you should snag one because I don't even know how many we sold everything we've got, but I don't know how
the
many
first
more.
batch came. We sold all those literally. I think we did one. We did one mention in the live sale, and they just went crazy on it. And then Zeke shot a couple more videos, and we've already sold some of this next batch. And then there's a third. I think there's a third with a couple more in that third container.
Yeah.
And we're building more right now.
So, and I saw JV Rock Counting. He said it. From what he's seen, it appears to be smart to get a vibe for stage 2 and up. And I want to say that it is really kind of perspective to your needs or what you like to do with tumbling. I usually, even my big tumblers, my 12 and my 15 pound, when I've gone through stage 1, I dump that in my big UV18 and I go the rest of the way through. Some people don't like vibes. Jaws here, he uses vibes for a lot of what he does. I use vibes for a lot of what I do. And but they take a little bit more babysitting, and there's a little bit longer learning curve to learn to run a vibe the right way and get your water and everything right.
One of the challenges with like, as I look at what was out there with vibratory tumblers, is that most of the vibratory tumblers, with the exception of that Viking, most of the vibratory tumblers out there were just crap. The
new ones, especially,
the bowls are thin plastic, and they just have a very limited life, or they were just so wimpy that you couldn't get good action in them. So when I introduced our big 24-inch vibe, like,
it's a monster.
It's a beast. This is what's used commercially in the Chinese market. And what I did is I took that concept, which in China, they're freaking horribly built. And I said, all right, we're gonna build this, but we're gonna build it like Highland Park would build it, not like some gimped up thing that's not got a ground and not wired well.
Now, what are the bowls on those made out of, John? What kind of material?
Basically, the bowl is a solid cast aluminum bowl, and it's a beast, but it's got a urethane liner.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And so what we're doing right now, we're in the process of, because what I was doing for a while is I was buying bowls from other people and building the bottom side of the machine and putting all our hardware in it. But what we made the molds, and so we got 24s, and I think we got 18s both. We just got all the castings.
Aren't you doing 12s as well?
12s, I'm going to go a little bit different design, I think, but basically same concept though, but heavy duty. Yeah. And so what we're working on right now is we got to make molds to cast urethane liners, and the urethane liners are like they're like 5/8 of an inch thick. Like they're meant to last a long time, and you're never going to wear out your aluminum bowl ever.
Right. I have my UV18 is probably 35 years old. I inherited that from my dad when he gave everything, stopped doing it, and he'd bought that a long time ago. So it was made of a different quality. But today, when the boss wasn't in there, I was sitting in the classroom, and guess what I'm doing? I'm going through Highland Park's inventory, and I looked in there, and I was looking at that big vibe that you've got. And the reason I asked about that liner is because when I looked at it, that bowl is bolted all the way around about every 2.5 inches. It's got a bolt that holds it to that base, and the size of the springs that you've got on there, I can't even imagine the type of the motor and the offset on it. And so it works very much like what we use now on the UVs, that Tumblers puts out. Mm-hmm. And I know the quality is far different, especially now considering that Tumblers, their UVs have gone way downhill. They have brackets that break on them a lot. The motors have begun to fail. Just some different problems. And I think I'm the only one in our group that actually tumbles, aren't I? You don't do any, do you, Brad?
I do a little bit. I haven't done I haven't done any for about 2 years now, but I have done some.
Use?
I've got just a couple of Tumblers.
You use the Vibes or you use the rotaries?
Rotaries.
And that's what most people like. They like a rotary. You don't have to babysit it. You go out once a week and check it and everything. I
just got great deals on my rotaries, or I would run a Vibe, but I got great deals on my rotaries. I paid like $10 for these Tumblers. It was I had them at a yard sale and I couldn't pass them up.
Oh,
like,
right? You got screwed, man. You paid like $5 too much. Yeah, every now and then you get a wonderful deal like that, and you gotta love it when that happens.
Yeah. Somebody sold me a brand new one a couple of years ago, brand spanking new one for $100. Then before I could get over to his house and get it, because I forgot about it a year later, he sold it to somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
Jaws comes across a lot of stuff, and he and I have this camaraderie and this thing going on, and I never could get over there and go get it. He came across somebody that needed it, and honestly, I don't need it. I have so many Tumblers sitting around now, especially with you guys getting your new ones. So as soon as you guys got them online and I was able to get one, I got both the twin and the single drum. And I've got those, and so I've put up one video, getting ready to put up one on this one right here, so we can show people how to adjust that. And I think, John, that I found the easiest way for most of them to do it, after showing them where that is if you can't reach through there, you've got 4 little screws on that fan, and it just pops out, and you just hang it over, and you can reach down. There's that module right there.
Oh yeah.
And
when we set them up, we basically set them up, and we run the tachometer on them. When we set them up, they just go in through the side.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I figured.
You use a little bit longer Phillips screwdriver, one of the little tiny Phillips, and there's a little blue trim pot in there, and you're just tweaking it until you get it right. But what people need is they need a tachometer so they can have a reference point. Then it gets very, very, and what's what's amazing. Like I was standing in Home Depot the other day looking for something, and I walked past all the multimeters, and they're all the same multimeters that I can buy in China, except they're like $45, and I can buy it for $12.
Yes.
So I'm gonna bring in the tachometers and have it, because it's really a valuable tool if you're wanting to dial your tumbling process in.
Right.
And you got a variable speed, then you can just dial it right in what you want it, and it's not a big investment.
You mean you don't like putting a chalk mark on it, using a stopwatch, and hoping you counted right?
Yeah, you can, but that's little. Like if you're just sitting there holding the trigger and it's telling you what number it is, well, okay.
Now, before anybody says anything about those $12 units that he's talking about versus the $45 unit, I'm telling you right now, if you buy one at Home Depot for $45, it's made in another country as well. So
what I'm telling you, Dave,
it's the same. It's
right.
the exact same model.
Yeah, it's the same exact
brand.
Model. Yeah,
it's the exact same brand because I recognize them. The case moldings, all that, it's the same brand.
Well, I've really gotten away from this whole, if it's made with the exception of some of the stuff out of India now, they are having some control issues there, but it doesn't matter where it's made anymore. It's it's not like it used to be.
If you're getting electronics, they're all coming out of China.
Coming out of Malaysia,
board manufacturing, all that stuff's coming out of China. And I'll tell you this, they're really good at it.
They are good at it. Unfortunately, they're just like anybody else. You get that guy who, instead of selling you a Maserati, sends you a cast aluminum component that you didn't order.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's like if you look at like an iPhone is almost all iPhones are built in China. Now I can tell you this. I can tell you inside it in this. See who is that does it for them? Foxconn.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Those guys, I guarantee you, they got a staff of people whose mission in life is to ferret out all those shitty contractors that are substandarding the components. And I'll tell you, that is one of the biggest challenges because, if somebody passes you a bad component and they say, oh, it's all this, and then you get it and you start using it, I'll tell you, my biggest problem from a manufacturing standpoint is motors. It's always motors. It's been motors since day one. And it's certainly what I would say, I started when I first was building, I was using A.O. Smith. A.O. Smith, good American-made motor. Well, I was having.
No, it's not.
It's not American-made anymore.
No, it's not.
I can tell you this. I was running into a 15% failure rate with A.O. Smith.
Wow.
We had that with Leaton too. When we were buying from McMaster Car, we had a 15.4% failure rate on Leaton motors.
Yeah. So basically, what's happening right now is I got an open position for a motor engineer. Now I know a lot about that stuff too, but I need a guy. Who this is his mission in life, and we are building the molds. We're going to make all our own castings for the end bells for the motors. We've got a supplier who's going to do the windings. We're going to do final assembly, test, calibration, all of that.
Wow.
So we are going into the motor manufacturing business because I'm tired of dealing with this.
Now, is this across the board, all the motors that you
all
use?
The motors. We're going to start with the obvious ones, which is the, half NEMA 48, half NEMA 56, and then 3/4 horse, 1 horse, 1.5 horse.
So I've got this 6-inch sitting over here. What have I had that now? Almost 4 years, something like that. It has that dual capacitor, half horse on there. And to me, that's been a great motor. I mean, when you flip the switch on it, you better have a hold of yourself because
it's powerful motor.
What are you thinking is the difference? I mean, I've not seen a quality problem there.
Here's the real thing, Dave. This is the part that we shield everybody from in large part. It's every time that motor manufacturer engineer quits and they hire a new guy, the new guy comes in and he starts changing shit.
I can make it better.
All of a sudden, we're in final test and 20% of the motors are failing. And my hair's turning gray because I can't ship all that product because the motors aren't any good. And then these guys are telling me 45 days to get me replacement motors and swearing up and down they didn't change anything. How much do you think I like those guys?
Well, and the loss of revenue over that, as well as the loss of customer base. So, and I told you guys before, I told you, I owned.
Not that the motors aren't good when we finally end up, we're
like a 3.2% failure rate here in the States is better than Leaton and all that, but it's still more than we'd like. Yeah, because when somebody's the guy who has that 3.2%,
it's the variability. I like they should figure their shit out and then stabilize. But their engineers go out and the new one comes in and he changes shit because he thinks he knows better.
Well, and they're really not truly engineers.
They screw it up.
Well, I owned computer repair stores for 10 years, and one thing I can tell you, customers are fickle. So if they have to wait for 3 days for something that you promised them in 24 hours, they don't care what happened to your supply line. They don't care what happened to anything. They're to the guy down the street now that does such horrible work that nobody else will go to them.
Yeah.
And this is part of what happens with Amazon. Amazon has produced for everybody. I want it now.
Right.
Hey, John, I think Courtney had a question.
Sure.
Well, I was going to address what Josh Jr. had asked. Is there any update on
the
doing
soft resin wheels?
Yeah.
I think we just got a bunch in, didn't we?
Yep.
Yeah. Are they good?
Are they good? We'll put it this way. I'm reasonably pleased with them as a very competitive wheel, and I'm working on more.
Okay. I've never tried your wheels, so I would be interested to.
Our wheels are decent, but I, like any other diamond tool, I want to keep iterating and come up with, even better.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, put it this way: we have customers that use them, and they do replace them after a period of time. They're not going elsewhere. They're like, no, we like your wheels. They wear well. They perform well. I don't think they're performing at the level of a Nova wheel. I like the Nova wheel a lot, but they're also half the price of a Nova wheel.
Gotcha.
That's true for sure.
The challenge that I think, well, if you really stop and you look at the market,
right.
Diamond Pacific they've been the leader in the soft wheels for a long time. Because they started with them, and certainly that was a great innovation. And now there are dozens of competitors. There's a lot of Chinese companies that are chasing that market and posting stuff on Facebook and picking up business.
Yeah.
And
I've tried them all, and they all suck. I think the only ones I haven't tried are yours, because I finally was like, you know what? I'm just not doing it. I'm just going to stay with the Novas. And
John, find a way to innovate the Nova.
The only reason I even started trying other ones were because during that crazy time a couple of years ago, they were on back order.
Right.
And I didn't have a choice. So now, I go through easily 4 sets of wheels a year because I cab a lot. It's like what I do, right?
Yep.
So I go through wheels. So now I have them.
I'll tell you, I think you would be pretty happy with our sintered wheels and our plated wheels for sure.
Okay.
Our sintered wheels, I think, are probably the best on the market.
Yeah.
Our plated wheels are plated wheels. As long as your plating's got decent integrity, they're all very similar.
Right.
So then a lot of what you're looking at is what's the cost of it.
Yeah.
And
And also, are they balanced? You'll
right.
find
Okay. So there you go.
Taking the hell out of things.
Right.
So there was someone in one of the Facebook lapidary sales groups, Mandy Jing, I believe it was constantly selling both soft wheels, centered wheels, and plated wheels. Well, this is just before you guys put yours out.
Yep.
So I thought, okay, for the price, I'll try a set of them.
Yep.
Number one, I had to go in and I had to file out the centers of them because they would not fit on a 1-inch shaft. They were just a hair too small.
They were
25 millimeters.
Yeah, right. And they were metric, exactly. And I asked her about this specifically. I said, "Are they metric or are they 1-inch? Are they going to fit?" No, they'll fit your shaft.
Yeah.
So then I put this on my machine, and I flipped it on, and it does one of these numbers because it's not true. The plastics on them are warped, and somehow when they put that band on, that band twisted with it. And so now here you go. Okay, so I got these. They came from China. They were cheap. I think I paid $60 a piece for them. But I paid $45 for the shipping, and then to replace them, they wanted me to pay $45 to ship them back to them.
Absolutely.
So they could redo them. So cheaper is not always better.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We're making sure you get what you pay for.
And
I know
this Mandy.
You know who I'm talking about then.
I know this Mandy gal, and I can tell you this. Mandy doesn't have any association with the company.
She's just selling their product.
She is a trading person. So she's randomly going to different companies, getting products and selling them. So you don't even know if the wheel that you bought from her this time and the wheel that you bought from her 6 months ago are made by the same company, because she's going to go find the lowest price one to sell you that make them as smart.
And this is the big problem with Alibaba. Like people go up on Alibaba and they'll find something, but everybody who's selling on Alibaba are trading companies. They're not the manufacturers. And the trading companies are always switching stuff around because they just want to make the most amount of money. And it's like that drive-by type of thing. They get one sale, they don't care if they're making a repeat sale.
Right.
So you know,
and they do it in such scale that they're making millions. Right. They're very good.
And they don't care.
Well, think about Vivor. I mean, Vivor is kind of interesting one because they took Cab King's cabbing machine and they brought it out at $300 less with free shipping. Same exact machine. Yeah. And they're selling it out on Amazon.
What Vivor did,
not the same exact quality.
No, it's the same machine from the same factory.
You mean in other words, bought their machine?
Here's what they did. Let me explain to you how this worked. So Cab King outsourced their manufacturing. Now, there's a distinction. We don't do any outsourced manufacturing because we own the factory. We control everything. Nobody comes in our factory and does anything in our factory that isn't working for us. If you outsource, you're saying, here's my design. You give it to a random factory of your choice, and you say, make this for me. Then they say, okay, we have to make these molds. We have to find this motor, maybe we're making and they do all that.
Yep, and you're intellectual
property. And then you're buying the finished units from them. Right. Now, here's what happened with Cab King is Vivor is probably $1 billion a year company. They're huge. And their whole strength is they're brilliant at marketing. And they're all over Amazon, and they know how to do that and control that. And all they're doing is they're sourcing all these different companies and finding the products that are highest volume hot, and then they go and they promote and sell them.
Sure.
So they went to the manufacturer that's making these for Cab King, and they said, oh, Chinese to Chinese business is always going to be priority. If you know anything about the Chinese culture, you're going to understand Vivor could go in there, $1 billion company, and they're going to trump anything that Cab King could do. So Vivor comes in and says, I'll make us the exact same machine. They don't have to buy any molds. They don't have to develop any motor. They don't have to do anything. They go in and they broker a better deal because they're buying volume.
Right.
And these guys want them as a customer more than they want Cab King as a customer because Vivor is going to move a huge amount of stuff. Now, Vivor freaking undercuts the price the Cab King has on it because they're not doing any support or distribution. They're just dumping these out there. And they've been hijacked. That's it.
I told somebody today on TikTok, if it says Vivor, run.
Yeah. Well, you know, I did my first Vivor purchase. You know those. We'll talk about the angle grinder in a second. The Vivor purchase.
1 minute.
Wheels, John. Those things, Vivor, and they were screwed up when I got them. They sent me more. I mean, it's classic. Wet grinder, Vivor. I would say probably.
Well, put it this way. If you want to experience being disappointed, it is probably a reasonable swing at it. The reality is that all you got to do is read Vivor's reviews, and you'll get these are badly written by Chinese people who are paid to write positive reviews, and nobody talks about product that way. If you read them, it's a joke. It's totally a joke, but Amazon doesn't care because they're making a huge revenue stream off of Vivor, so they're going to let them do that.
If you do that, your ass is going to be kicked off.
Yeah, like I can tell you this: if I got on there, I'm not doing a big revenue stream like they are, and we're doing fake reviews, they'd stomp on us pretty fast. Now, if we're $1 billion company and we're doing fake reviews and they're rolling a lot of money off, they're going to leave us be. It's always going to be about the money.
Yep.
And on that note, it is 9:30.
Fun as always.
Good talking to y'all.
Yes, you too.
I enjoyed it.
Thanks for coming. Yeah, we'll have you back again. Absolutely.
All right.
Good show, you guys.
Really enjoyed hanging out with all of y'all.
Heck yeah.
Absolutely. Everybody that came, thank you so much for coming. We love you. We will not be doing a show next week. So we will see you after Thanksgiving.
Just because it's Thanksgiving?
Have a wonderful holiday. And we will see you, what is it, the 29th, I think, is the next show we're going to do. But share your stuff in the group. Share your stuff on the pages. Keep in touch with us. We love you guys. We'll see you next time.
Like, share, subscribe. Bye-bye.
Sorry. Yes, what Ryan said.